So just want to thank you, and without any further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Sean. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the introduction. So I'm Sean, Senior Systems Admin here at Belier. I've been working with Sitecore for pretty much the last 6 years. I've gone through Sitecore 6, 7, 8, and 9 is kind of a huge paradigm. So we're getting started with Sitecore 9, Commerce, and SIF. For those that don't know, SIF is a new type of way of installing Sitecore through the Sitecore installation framework. So it's a big change if you've never worked with it before, and just there's a lot of new changes. We'll talk about that a little bit as the presentation goes on. So what I'm going to basically be talking about is how to create an environment, what considerations you're going to need to take for that environment, how to prepare your environment, how to prepare your Sitecore 9 install, how to prepare your Commerce install, and then just some problems that we ran along the way, and then how to troubleshoot when you run into those problems. And then Dan is going to be discussing his magic of how to actually make some money with this thing. So there's, we're not in Sitecore 8.2 anymore. This is a totally new paradigm of installing things. I've done some work with Azure, and Azure uses like WPF deploy scripts. Alessandro knows a little bit about that, and he can hack through those a little bit. So it wasn't like the first time that I'd ever seen these sort of scripts before, but if you've worked with an Azure PaaS deployment or anything, it's not going to be completely boring as it would if you've only done 8.2 installation. So this is what a Sitecore Commerce used to look like in 8.2. You have all of your .NET aspects, and then anything in red is sort of like legacy that's gone away. We had a COM object down here. Everything was connected through, say, like a powered by. So you have, Sitecore Commerce powered by Microsoft Dynamics, or powered by, this other engine. And they've kind of taken that all away and just made it a lot simpler. So this is what a Commerce install looks like on 9 now. So you'll have, it's a little tough to see with the colors, but essentially you'll have your site, which is just your straight up Sitecore site. You'll have your XConnect site. You'll have your ID server, which is what does it handles all the logins now. You have your Solar server, which does your search. You can also use Azure Search if you want, but we're just going with the Solar search to simplify it a little bit. A lot of the documentation is just baked in with Solar right now, so that's what we use. And then finally, you have your BizFX, and this manages like your products, your customers, things like that. And then underneath, we have like our API layer. So you'll have your authoring API, your shop API, your jobs and scripts, and then they put in some nice DevOps tools as well. They're a different sort of API that basically has like, it's in a protected area, requires elevated privileges, and you can like manage multiple environments through it. You can set policies, manage global artifacts, things like that through it. So they've taken a lot of the guesswork out from here and really combined it very nicely. So one thing that has also changed in 9 is certificates. Dan mentioned earlier that he was having some trouble with that. And so one thing that's kind of happened in this industry, and I'm sure you've all experienced it, is what happens in dev stays in production. When you start developing a solution, when you move it to production, you kind of just lift and shift it over. And sometimes, you might comment out a line about security, you might comment a line, rather than using HTTPS, you'll use HTTP. This forces you to focus on security. So right from the start, you have to set up a certificate that talks to SQL. You have to set up a certificate that talks to Solar. You have to have an XConnect certificate. You have to have a BizFX certificate. And it makes sense in this sort of scenario because we're dealing with money, we're dealing with PII, we're dealing with customers' names, addresses, and we really want this to all be encrypted and secure from the start. So you're developing with the focus on security. So when Dan came to me, he was pretty frazzled. We were trying to figure out how to actually, make this this environment work. He had about 60 different Sitecore sites in his IIS. You know, we were having issues with, you know, Visual Studio 2015 DLLs, Visual Studio 2017 DLLs. He had SQL Server 2014, he had SQL Server 2012, he had SQL Server 2016 installed. You know, he had certificates that were put out by him, certificates that, you know, George and I had pushed out for, you know, getting onto the VPN. We had a lot of legacy junk on his computer. So, and he was also running out of space as well. So, you know, I was like, Dan, let's take a step back here and, you know, let's leverage Azure. We're a Microsoft partner. Let's actually do this on the cloud. And this actually has a lot of benefits other than just being able to start with a clean install. It's also easy to share. You know, when Dan is developing this product and he's sitting in a Starbucks down the road, you know, now he can share it with Chris Brady because it's all in the cloud. He doesn't have to worry about, you know, opening a port, getting on the VPN. So just being able to, you know, make this a nice portable thing. And then when we're done with it, you know, we can package it up into a VM and, you know, move it into another Azure subscription. We can build a template and, you know, put it onto the cloud, you know, in another environment that's, you know, been pre-configured and we're ready to start, you know, developing rather than having to, you know, worry about setting up, you know, all this stuff over again. And, you know, we have the benefit, being a Microsoft partner, that we are able to get free Azure credits. So, you know, if you are doing this, you know, if you're a Clear employee or you do have an MSDN Visual Studio Online subscription, you can, you know, use those free Azure credits to set this environment up on your own and start playing around with it. So, you know, it's a lot easier than trying to, you know, start looking in your event log and saying, oh, you know, why can't I install these PowerShell scripts to SQL and stuff like that. So it just made things a lot easier to run everything in the cloud. So now we're going to get into like the meat and potatoes of this. And you know, I know there's a lot of info on this slide, but don't be scared. This stuff is all on my blog, and we're actually going to be working to get some of this into a chocolatey script. But essentially, starting off, just to get your base install ready, you're going to need a Windows 2016 server, you're going to need Solar 662, you're going to need a Microsoft SQL 2016 server, patched to the latest version, and Java 8. So that will basically get you to point A. And I know that the Sitecore 9 documentation says you can use some different environments, but because we're running Commerce, we actually need those specific components. Because, you know, the encryption in the SQL Server, that wasn't really ironed out until 2016. There's some certificate stuff that is specific to 2016. Solar has some issues that were fixed in 662 that just didn't work with the versions. And Java 8, of course, to be able to run Solar. Once you have, you know, your base installed, then you're going to need an IIS server. You're going to need .NET 6.2. You're going to need 2015 redistributable for Visual Studio. You're going to need Visual Studio web targets, which I believe you can get through NuGet. You'll need .core 2 for Windows Server hosting. You're going to need the DACFX. This is actually really important because the way that the SQL databases are deployed, they're done through these things called DAC packs, which are kind of a new way to deploy schemas and set up databases. Again, if you're familiar doing some Azure deployment, those will seem familiar, but now they're pretty much a required thing. You're going to need NSSM, which is the best way to install Solar. You're going to need PowerShell 5. You're going to need the IS rewrite module. And then I've added these last three, Visual Studio Code, Postman, and the Git client. These are just going to make your life a lot easier when you're installing this. Due to, you know, not having to open Visual Studio every time you want to edit a JSON file, Postman for when you're trying to hack through some of these APIs, and then Git just to, you know, keep a record of breadcrumbs of what you've done through your work already. One thing too that I just really want to call out is the Solar again, this is not an executable that you run like it used to be with the Sitecore Instance Manager. This is basically a PowerShell platform that you need to sort of services, it's configuring solar, building all these search indexes, it's building in your aggregator, which is the marketing automation, it's building in the Connect indexer, so you don't have to, basically if you've done this stuff in 8.2 or earlier, you have to do all these steps manually, and now this SIF framework essentially does this all for you. So, SIF is good, it's a little complicated, but it's worth it once you have your scripts figured out. So once you have finally downloaded everything, you're ready to start working, you have to create your install file.
There's a magnifying glass down right at the bottom there.
So this is your actual PowerShell script that you're running. You'll notice here that there is a prefix. It's a little tough to read. This stuff is documented pretty well. But your prefix, this is what you're going to call your site. This is where you put your solar. You have some parameters here. Obviously, I changed that password. But yeah, basically, and then down here you'll see that you have your XP0 configuration, and so that's what's telling it, this is the type of Sitecore install I want to set up. And one thing to take note of that you'll need in the Commerce install is that prefix. That's pretty important. So after you run that script, you have a Sitecore 9 install. Again, it's really making sure that you prepared yourself with all those other pieces of software to get to this stage. I can tell you, going through the installation, probably we did it 8 or 9 times before we got to this. So, it's really, really important that you go into this prepared. So now we just have a Sitecore 9 install. Now we have to set up Commerce. There's a few other pieces that you'll need for this. You'll need Web Deploy. You'll need the Sitecore Experience Platform. You'll need the Sitecore Experience Accelerator and Sitecore PowerShell extensions. Once you've downloaded all those, you unzip the extensions. There'll be these 3 files in there, the Sitecore Commerce, the Commerce Engine, and the BizFX. You'll basically put those into another folder. The versions are going to change, so make sure that you note those versions because you'll need those for your Commerce install. Finally,
you'll need to create a certificate. This also kind of gave us a bit of a problem because the documentation was not clear on what to call this certificate. Out of the box, it's sxa.storefront.com. So when you're working with this, on your first try, don't change that. Just call it sxa.storefront.com. In the documentation, it will just say host name, and it won't tell you what that host name means or anything like that. So just make a note of that. Finally, stop your Sitecore XConnect site and create another PowerShell script. Few notes about this one. This is the last really small thing. So you'll have your site name. Again, that's the site name from the previous one. You have your host header name. That's the sxa.storefront.com. And then we added one more parameter in this, and that's the start task. And when Dan goes through his demos, you might see error log 19, error log 20, error log 21. We had to run through this thing a lot of times before we were able to get it to run cleanly. And one of the problems is when you run it the second time, you're going to have to clean all your Solar cores out, and you're going to have to clean some of your databases out, which is pretty cumbersome if you're doing this over and over and over again. So it gives you a pretty good error message when it crashes out of what portion it crashed on. So by adding this parameter when we run our Sitecore script, we were able to start right where we finished off, rather than having to keep running this over and over and cleaning the environment until we could get it right. Another thing I want to call out is this right here. So all throughout the Sitecore 9 install, you're using sitename.sc, sitename.xconnect. In this file, when you download it from Sitecore, for some reason, that's an underscore. It's not a period. So you have to change that to a period. We're not sure. Hopefully that'll be fixed in later versions, but that's just something that we came across and kind of gave us a little bit of a stumbling block. One more thing. Yes, down here. You'll see these resolve paths for the Sitecore Commerce engine, the Sitecore content path, and the zip paths. Right here. Those are just the numbers that you pulled off of the previous slide here when you extracted these, and you need to put those in. It just doesn't do the token replacement very well. So again, this is kind of just sort of explaining, when it crashes out, this is what we decided to do. So it's start the installation from this step, and again, it gives you a pretty clear indication of what happened when it crashed, so you can start from the next step. So now, I'm going to hand it over to the magic part of it, and we're going to talk about how to make some money.
And another round of applause for Sean, because if Sean was not part of this, I would be rescheduling this to sometime in August or 2019. Okay, thanks again for coming out. What I'm going to be doing with this part of the talk is showing you a bit what this looks like if you're a shopper who's going to a site that's built on Sitecore Commerce, what it looks like if you are, the term they use is merchandiser, but someone who builds products or builds promotions or manages inventory or looks at orders on this. So what that looks like. And then I'm going to look at the developer view, what this looks like if you want to extend it, because that's really why we make a living at this. If everything worked perfectly for clients out of the box, and there wouldn't be developers. You know, or just be very few of them. But every single client, every single business has their little tweaks or little things that they need to do differently, and that's, you know, really what this tool is very much focused around, is the ability to add these little custom behaviors. Oh, when in our business we have to have different rules for you know, this kind of product versus that kind of product. So it's really important that we be able to fulfill different order lines on a cart separately. You know, that kind of thing, those kinds of nitty-gritty requirements. We need someone to be able to buy something. We don't then ship it to them. Then they can go to this part of the website and they'll be able to download something or they'll be able to see something. All those little things have their little nooks and crannies or little rules, and this product is very much built around supporting, enabling us to be able to build out those custom features while, and this is the really important part, while still being able to upgrade. I think one of the saddest sentences in the English language is, we can't upgrade, it's too customized. You're like, oh yeah, there's all kinds of features coming out in number 10 or version 11 or whatever. Yeah, we can't do that. No, we're still back on the version that came out in 2008 because we made too many custom features to it and we're stuck there. And so very much the goal of Sitecore Commerce, the point they stress over and over again in presenting it to the Sitecore community and MVPs and so forth, is that they want to be able to create a product that you can extend while still being able to upgrade. So when you add a little feature, you're working these very tightly defined plugins, and they're nicely boxed off from everything else. So while I'm showing you what a shopping cart looks like and what an order looks like, I'm also going to be showing you a little bit of what that looks like as a developer. So let's go take a look at what this looks like for.
Nothing back there yet.
Oh. I just really like the color blue. Let's just a second.
Windows key P?
No, there we go. No.
It's a bad install software.
Let's try that again.
Did you turn on the cloud?
What was it? That was 15 minutes? There was a Sitecore practice meeting. It was like 15 minutes. Yeah, I heard about that one. Let's see if I can get. Yeah, actually, is there anyone here who's good with computers? It's my standard question.
You like duplicate, right?
Yeah, I like duplicate. Thank you.
Do we typically unplug this?
I'll just describe. Imagine JSON objects. Imagine in your actually, I can use this time. So yeah, one of the things I'm going to show, and I'm going to set the stage. So he here has worked with. I'll take the mic. I'm going to do Frank Sinatra style. Oh. Once again, Sean Daly. This is why I had the IT guy as a co-presenter. So my little secret. Sean Daly saves the talk a second time. Okay, here we go.
Is there power?
Oh, did I lose it again? There was a close the tabs step that I missed while getting ready for this. Close the program. Okay, here we go. So here we have the shopping cart. Let me get rid of that menu. That looks, come on, go away. Windows, work with me. Okay, so this is a standard storefront. You'll notice it doesn't have a lot of color. I'll come back to that, but we do have the ability to buy things. So if I look at my shopping cart here, I see I've got a watch there, $100. Yeah, sure, why not? I also, I noticed we only have 2 fridges upstairs. Every company could use a 3rd fridge, so we're going to get a refrigerator. And there we see some refrigerators. Oh, I can filter here. and we'll get something with an ice maker. And I'm just showing you right now, $3,000. Sure, why not?
Is this all part of the Habitat Commerce demo? Like the products and the site and everything itself? Or did you do some customization?
I did no customizations whatsoever.
Right.
It's all straight out of the box, and I'll show you how you get this. So we're going to check out. Am I still logged in as me? Nope. We'll just go with it. I need more cores, Sean. Yeah, so one tip I want to add to when Sean was presenting things is that if you're working in the cloud, you have this ability to kind of upshift and downshift, and like you can make your computer much more powerful for like 15 minutes, which is kind of awesome. And we were on like the cheapest plan possible and only had 2 cores, and the script will die because it's doing too much stuff. So what I would recommend is if you're trying to run CIF and if the CIF scripts are dying, go up to 4 cores for 15 minutes, then go back down. Okay, so we're going to buy some stuff. So this is an interesting point. We have the ability to ship the items, or we could ship the items to different locations for each item. So, you know, maybe I want the watch to come to my house, maybe I want the fridge to come here. So, you know, that's, you know, I was talking about, and that was a real example of a client that has specific different fulfillment requirements for different lines in the cart. And that's something that's very much baked into Sitecore Commerce, is that you're able to process, you know, each cart item, whether it's a refrigerator, whether it's a watch, whether it's the right to download a movie or to view a PDF online. Each one is handled individually, can go through its own business rules. But I don't want to fill out this form twice, so I'm going to just go to ship items, put my name in. You guys got to see an order number, right? I can't skip that. I actually had to Google how many M's Somerville had. United States. And I'm going to want to have the watch sent by ground. card numbers. And then it's going to go on Twitter, and this is not going to be fun coming into work the next day. So you don't want, and quite seriously, there's regulatory issues, PCI compliance, and so forth. There are very strict rules on what you have to do if you're storing credit card numbers. And I have no idea what's involved, but it's a very long list. You do not want to do that. So what's actually happening here is this is an iframe. So this is not getting served by the site itself. It's getting served by Braintree, which is a payment provider, and they're showing this part of the site. The front end is getting, the styles are getting set by this site, but the actual, we're not storing any of this information. And Braintree allows you to create a free sandbox. So you can go on there and say, yep, I'm building a site. I want to create a sandbox, and I can actually log into there and see all the payments I've made on this site. Okay, and so it just says that a credit card ending in 11 has been accepted, and I'm going to use my billing. I'm going to use, okay. So because I put in 2 different addresses, I have to type this in again. We'd probably want to fix that in a real implementation. Okay, is it 114 or 144? 44. Thank you. And we're not in Canada. Sitecore 821 could only accept things from New York, and it was one other state. So I spent the longest time, why isn't Massachusetts working? Why is it working? And then let's try Ontario. Hey, that worked. So anyway, now all 50 states work. So a small thing they fixed in addition to getting off of COM objects. Yeah. Kind of stuff is stressful. And we'll just do dan@example.com. This is another little tip. Example.com is reserved. And if you use test.com and or use Gmail and then you send out 100 million Gmail messages, you can really get the company you're working for to have a bad reputation with email providers, and then you hear about it from your project manager. So example.com, I always use example.com in testing because that one is specifically reserved for demos. It actually is set aside. Okay, so hopefully this screen is ready. And I have a confirmation screen. And this is always a magical moment for me because when I worked on my first commerce project, someone said, I want you to be able to get a confirmation number back and have the cart turn into an order. And it's like, okay, that's very clear. So, I remember that was like, oh, I got a confirmation number. It was like high fives over the, conference line. So this is always a magical moment for me. We now have completed an order. And this is a point to get, so basic flow has happened. Someone has picked up products. They put in credit card information. They've confirmed it. They've put in shipping details. An order has been created. So we're now ready to, we got to get the fridge to the person, but then we can charge a credit card and, profit, as Sean said. And that gets us started if all we wanted to do was this. But if we wanted to extend things and change things, that's where how this happens behind the scenes. Can everyone hear okay?
Yeah, that's the problem. Okay. It's taking off.
That's excellent. You can hear the money coming in. That's great. Okay, so who here has actually worked on a commerce project? Okay, how many, roughly speaking, did you look at the database?
Which one?
Where did the orders go? That database.
To the payment provider accessor.
How about inventory?
Oh, the actual orders.
Yeah. Salesforce. Okay. I mean, in mine.
Digital products.
Okay. I just remember, and I've worked on a few different. I started out actually in telephone billing of all things. The tables get really, really complicated. You can actually look at the diagram of the database and figure out what it does. Oh, loyalty, that's over there. inventories over here. Oh, and here's addresses, and here's business addresses. And everything that the thing does is a little table that's got joins going all these different ways. And then you just find out that, oh, we also need to add, discount for flavor of the month. Oh, we're going to build a table for that. And that's how you get in that situation where you've over-customized things. And you want to, get the new version, and now you have to manage all these relationships. The more complicated your database gets, the more hard it is to change it. So I just want to quickly show you what the database looks like for Sitecore Commerce. It just has 8 tables, or 10 or something like that. We've got cart, we've got orders, we have promotions, we have catalogs. And if we look at the order, this is one big, very long string that is, it's not that bad, I promise. Anyway, it's a very long string that contains basically all of the details that make up that order. So if you take this, I could drag this out for a very long time. And what you'd end up with, who here's done any MongoDB development? A little bit, okay. You basically end up, or worked with front-end developers and had to send JSON files? Okay. You end up with a very large JSON file. So this goes on for a long time. And here, let me open these up. We have components, we have adjustments, we have lines, and you'll see basically everything that, all the products that were ordered, the amounts, everything that makes this up. And what's interesting about this is that you actually have the C# objects that represent these things. So this whole thing is a Sitecore Commerce plugin orders order, which is in the plugin orders DLL. And then the money amount is a Sitecore Commerce Core money, which is into Sitecore Commerce Core DLL. And then if you go down here, you'll see that again, and you'll see that again, and you'll see that again, you'll see that again, you'll see that again, you'll see that again, and you'll see that in every single order, which is a ridiculous amount of waste and duplication. And back in the day, which is not that long ago, when disk cost money, you would never, ever, ever build a system this way because it's too much waste. And you had to pay for all this. But now gigabytes are like sand. I need another 100 gigabytes. Here's a terabyte. You can buy them, at a convenience store. I want a terabyte, SanDisk because I got to move my 300 gigabytes of photos I'm never going to look at onto here and there and whatever. Disk is incredibly cheap. So what you get if you write down every single detail and repeat it over and over and over again is you don't have to keep this information anywhere else, which means that you can change this. So if a requirement comes in, I'm talking to an analyst and they say, having a conversation with Sunil, and he says, what would be really cool is if you could store loyalty points. I can say, well, let me work on that. I'm going to store loyalty points. Where am I going to put them? Oh, well, every single thing in Sitecore Commerce has a spot called components. And components is like a dumping ground where you can put whatever you want. So here we have contact information here. We have the fact that this was a split fulfillment component. So if there's special logic for split fulfillment where, the watch is going to my house and the fridge is going to my work, that might have special business logic. All that stuff is in here. So that if I have a conversation with an analyst and they suggest a new feature, I can start stuffing that into this thing, which is just text. It's just something I could write down on a very large Post-it note. And I don't have to make any structural changes. I don't have to install any tables. And then any code that's processing these orders can say, let me look at the components and let me see if I have this new thing that just got added last week. If so, I've got special processing. So basically, you can pull in little bits and pieces from wherever and extend your logic, and everything is kept in a very consistent location. So that's really extensibility and upgradability. Okay. Let's take a look at what this looks like for... I've got too many windows open to go back to my slide deck, so I'm not even going to try. Imagine I've got slides. Let's take a look at what this looks like for authors or merchandisers, to use the term they use. So log into Sitecore, and we now have this new area, business tools. And if on 821 we had 3 or 4 boxes here for orders and customers. Who here has done Speak development? Awesome. I haven't. I've heard it's extremely painful. They tried to build this in Speak. Speak was Sitecore's own front-end language that they decided to write, and then they decided that was a bad idea. They have now basically built a completely new location. They've made it look like Sitecore, but it's actually a different address. It was one of the blue boxes on Sean's diagram. You are now going to get another login, and this is going to even another blue box. This is the identity server, which is managing your authentication across all these different machines. And now we have the ability to manage catalogs. Can anyone see that? Is that too small? Is that legible, or is that impossible to read? Okay. Okay. Control plus, Shift plus, Alt plus. I've lost the ability to zoom. Okay. How's that? Awesome. So this is all written in Angular 4, and I'm not going to show this, but I'm going to describe it. Everything here is also coming in a big JSON object. So if a requirement comes in to add a button here, we just say, oh, by the way, there's a button you have to put there, and we give the name of it. If we have to show a description, or we need to show, let's say, a date, money amount, we're just sending that as text. You are not doing any interaction with front-end code. You are not touching Speak. You are not touching, this is all written in Angular 4. You're not touching that. And the reason they did that is that they wanted to change their front-end paradigm. Again, they want to be able to upgrade their front-end technology without breaking everything. You shouldn't have to, if you get a requirement to add loyalty points, you shouldn't have to learn JavaScript. You should be able to say, oh, I'm adding a little piece that says loyalty points. I want to stick it here. I want someone to be able to modify that to has these permissions. And so then 2 years from now, when no one's using Angular and everyone's using React or whatever the front-end framework is that's big in 2021, all of your stuff will still work. And this approach was proven out by the Sitecore Commerce team because they moved from Speak to Angular, and they did not have to rewrite any of the code that spoke to that because everything went through these JSON objects.
Dan, I have one question there.
Yeah.
Are you saying merchandisers can go to this screen and add attributes of a product or add sections?
Yeah.
Right here?
Oh, well, sections, do you mean if I wanted to add loyalty points here and I wanted a big black bar that said loyalty
Let's
points?
start with the attribute piece.
Oh, attribute, yes.
If I wanted to add another field on a related product, could I do that?
I believe that's a developer task. Yeah, if you're trying to change schema, you want to say, okay, I want to be able to add, so an example, let's say it's something that doesn't come in colors, it's a gift card and you want to have a gift card come in red or blue. I believe that's structurally set up, but I'm not 100% sure, I'll have to double check that. This is primarily for people, you want to limit what people are allowed to do based on what their role is. If you wanted to have a new section appear here, because you're writing a customization to Sitecore Commerce that allows you to store, loyalty points as an example from their documentation, that is something a developer could do through a plugin. Again, you could do that by hooking into pipelines and saying, oh, by the way, when you show the product, add this section, you're not having to actually change, HTML. You're just doing it structurally. And I'm going to just jump to, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'm going to show you promotions Sean and I created a promotion for people attending this user group. And I said, Sean, how much should we give people off? And he said 80%. So we've created a promotion here.
Is everything you're showing here, like all the, is it all part of the out-of-the-box schema?
This is all out of the box. I've added a couple of promotions, which I could do now, but I'm kind of being mindful of time. How important would it be to people to, if you had to choose, to see what this looks like from a business user versus to see what this looks like from a developer?
Focus on the dev side. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, but most of this is out of the box. One point I want to stress is that you can add, because everything goes through pipelines, and everything is built using plugins, including the core functionality. Catalog is a plugin. Saving entities as SQL Server is a plugin. They use that, dog food is the term. They dog fooded everything to prove that this approach works. So you can say, okay, in addition, on top of the catalog plugin, I want to build another plugin that depends on that adds a line here. You could do that and it would pass through. Okay, so I am not seeing, is it because I've zoomed too much? Here. Let me just quickly show you what this looks like if I add something. Demo, user group demo. And then we want it valid for today, so I'm going to go back retroactively. And get stuff cheaper. Saving money. What did I call that? Was anyone paying attention?
Demo.
User group demo, thank you. User group demo. It's in draft state, so I'm going to we're going to give it a coupon code, which is New England Sitecore User Group. And we're not going to put any conditions on it. Actually, let me show you that screen. Here's all the different things you could do, but you could extend this list. Business requirements are we want to have this happen or that happen. Again, all of this is extensible and customizable. And the value proposition is you should be able to customize it and know exactly what's involved in upgrading it. That should not tie you to a version of the product. We're not going to put any. We'll say. No, we're not going to put anything. This is completely open. And then we're going to say, okay, how much are we giving off? Benefit.
95% off.
God, you guys are generous. I'm not sure that profit thing is going to happen if 95% off. Is item in stock? Sure. Okay. Oh, no. Bad, Dan. Pull a coupon, benefit. It's not giving me this. I'm going to move on. But that gives you a little flavor of what those screens are like. Okay, so now let's take a look at what this looks like for a developer. So there's a software development kit that comes with this, and we're going to take a look at the contents of that and how you'd use them. So this is the Sitecore Commerce Engine Software Development Kit. And a couple of things I want to point out. It's got this Postman folder. It has a VSIX file. A VSIX is a customization. How you know your talk has been going on too long. The lights go out. When the lights all come on, that's when it gets bad. The VSIX is allows you to customize Visual Studio to give you like a new kind of package type, and we'll take a look at that. And then we have two projects here. We have Sample Solution, and we have Sample Console. Sample Solution is actually what is running that site. So that site is getting that Habitat site is getting run off of Sample Solution. So that kind of shows you how to get started. That those 4 service boxes that were at the bottom of Sean's diagram are running this code. And then console, a whole bunch of integration tests. Every single thing that the product does, you can exercise in this little app that basically hits everything and says, added a product that was out of stock, wasn't allowed to do it. Applied a credit card. So basically this allows you to do 2 things. Make sure you haven't broken the solution, because if you run this and it runs cleanly, you know you're okay. Just checking, we are at, no, we're okay. And it allows you to look and say, how does this actually work? So I'll give you a practical example. I was trying to add a credit card and I was adding all 16 fours. That didn't work. I said, I know this thing can add credit cards. I went in, I looked and said, oh, it's adding 4 and then 1s. Oh, okay, so that's how you do it. I tried that, that worked. So that's a really simple example, but being able to see the actual code that's getting run to do things can really speed up your development. So I just want to show you that really quickly. If we go to, this is, yeah, so this is hard to see, but this file is called Buy Camera and Gift Wrap. And I'm going to bump up the font. Buy Camera and Gift Wrap, and so you can actually see code here that creates a cart and adds an order line and see exactly how that works. So if you want to start building, this basically gets you started faster when you're trying to do development. If someone comes up to you and says, how do I even do that? You can, and you're, let's say, an analyst, you can look really smart and say, well, have you looked at the console app? Because I believe everything the product does is in the console app. So if you look at that, you should be able to find it. Like, oh, well, it's still going to take me 2 weeks. Anyway. And then this is what the actual product looks like. And I want to make a couple of points about this. So you have your, and I know this is small. Is this completely illegible or just really painful? Okay. I don't think I can zoom this thing over here easily, and unless I'd set up something to do it, and I haven't. Anyway, so this is a Sitecore Commerce engine, and the thing I want to point out here is that this has a dependency. This is the main thing. It has a dependency on this plugin Sitecore Habitat, and plugin Sitecore Habitat has a dependency on 4 plugins, and I'm going to read these: Sitecore Commerce plugin coupons, fulfillment, gift cards, and inventory. And they've made a really big point about this in presenting the product. You might not need inventory. If you are iTunes, you only need inventory if you're selling the case and a phone goes in. You don't need inventory to sell the latest Taylor Swift album. You've got the bits, and you just send them out. And you're not going to sell out of it as long as someone doesn't delete the file. So if inventory is not relevant, if you don't have coupons as part of your business, why have them be part of the product? And if you have a requirement to extend gift cards, it's really helpful to have all of the gift card logic in one small place. So you can sit there and read, the 10 classes in the gift card module and say, okay, I need to change this, rather than looking at some enormous thing. Yeah, it's going to take me a month even to just understand what I need to change. So these are things, again, you can say, well, just why don't you find a little specific plugin you need to extend? It shouldn't take you a month, maybe 2 weeks. Again, this is all built to limit the complexity. So the phrase they use is opt-in complexity. If you don't need something, don't bring it into your solution. And everything that this thing does is part of, is built in a plugin. If you need inventory, bring it in. If you don't need inventory, don't. And then if you want to add functionality, you can go add new project, and then you'll see down here in red, Sitecore Commerce plugin sample, and that will give you a project that looks very much like this. And this basically gives you all the elements you could possibly want for a plugin. It gives you commands, it gives you like a sample entity. This is an incredibly simple entity. I showed you an order, this is the minimum thing you need for an entity. You need a date created, a date updated, and I told you everything has this components. Here you see it built in. So it gives you a starter pipeline, sample pipeline, and I made a very small change of what came out of the box to add set and block 2 just to play with it. But this gets you started, and then you can start customizing it. There's actually a pipeline that someone recently did to handle Bitcoin payments. And it was kind of funny because I could see that they didn't delete. So, first of all, I'm grateful they did it. It's kind of very cool to see it out there. But I also saw that they left some of those starter files in there. So this one still has, under entities, sample entity. So if anyone wants a really easy pull request, you can just delete this file and say, hey, by the way, I got rid of sample entities. But this is, this is just showing that this is a very specific business requirement to add the ability to process cryptocurrency. It was added by going through that workflow of adding that extension point and then, figuring out exactly what pipeline you need to hook into. That's probably going to be the payment pipeline, and it's kind of standard Sitecore development. What's the pipeline I need? Where do I insert it? Just a little more infrastructure built around that. And again, somewhat similar to Sitecore, everything's stored in a very standardized way that is very able to accommodate flexible change. Last thing I'm going to show you is I talked about those Postman samples. Who here's worked with Postman? Okay, so Postman is a client for making so basically, RESTful development is when one machine is talking to another machine by making a web request. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the basic idea. Everything, web requests are so standard, part of the way the world works. It's like, well, let's just have different systems talk to each other in a very standardized series of web requests. So the storefront is actually talking to the commerce server by making very specifically formatted web requests. I want a shopping cart. Give it to me. I want to add a product to a shopping cart. And if you're doing development, you can, and you want to say, oh, I want special logic to happen when I add a product to a shopping cart. You can exercise that by using this tool and hitting the little, there's a button for getting a shopping cart and adding it to it. So if I go, let me get rid of this. So this is a little hard to see, but I'll read these out loud. We have business user API samples, cart API samples, catalog API samples. And the way I got all this stuff is by going new, just clicking that, collecting collection. No, actually I lied. I think it was import. In here there's import. And then you just point to that Postman folder and you get all this stuff. It's just like it's a 2-minute operation. And then once you're able to do that, you're able to do things like go to the cart API and say, get me a shopping cart. And what's important is that you can then see all the headers. You can see everything that's involved in making this happen. You can tweak it. This here is, I know this is hard to read on the screen, but this is all available, downloadable from Sitecore. You can see the exact format of making these requests. If I send this, I'm going to get a 401 unauthorized. That's actually expected. I'm going to hit that identity server that Sean set up for me, and I'm going to get a token. And now I can see all the data that's going to be available to me when I call a shopping cart. I see my shopping cart balance. I don't have anything into shopping cart. I'm going to add a I don't know what a Sahara is, but I'm going to add a Sahara. And I see that that was OK. And if I go back and get the cart again, hopefully it has stuff in it. So now I see I got $57, and I see what the format looks like once I've gone through that. So this is basically, you hit a breakpoint. I want to know what happens when I add a cart because I've got this requirement. This is the way you would do it. And down here, there's also a special section for people like Sean where I want to set up an environment. It's called Sitecore Commerce DevOps. And it's like blow away environment, create an environment, clone an environment, completely destroy everything, so there's super high powerful stuff there. And again, the workflow is that you would probably work with those in a development thing and then they would become part of PowerShell scripts. So I'm going to stop there, but I'm going to stress the main point of this product is extensibility, so you can bring in customizations while still being able to upgrade, while not over customizing. You can customize in a kind of controlled way so that you can evolve with the product, and you also only need to bring in what you need. Opt-in complexity. If you don't care about inventory, don't make it part of your solution. You have less code you have to understand. So I'm going to stop there. Actually, I'm going to mention one thing to look at. If you want to dig deeper into this, go onto YouTube, go to Master Sitecore, and then they've got about 7 videos that go into this in great detail. I spent a lot of time with those videos over the last week and a half. So, any questions for me and Sean at this point?
I just want to say that the scripts are the lists of software and preparation. I did put it's on my blog, Zillabunny at zillabunny.wordpress.com. So if anybody needs to grab any of those, they're up there.
And thank you so much, Sean. It was this thing. Let me put up our Twitter handles. So Sean is at Zillabunnies. I'm at Dan Solivay, and then Valier.com blog. If you go there right now, you will find an article that Sean just wrote about why you want to look at building Sitecore in Azure PaaS, Platform as a Service. And then I am working on a blog post that summarizes some of the stuff I presented here, maybe takes it a little bit further. So something to keep in mind as well. Yeah, Sunil.
I mean, I know Sitecore 9 is like the native Sitecore Commerce experience, right? And Nick Wasserman moved over to the Active Commerce side. But what would you say at a high level are the advantages of the new Commerce engine versus the old integration with Active Commerce or whatever? At a high level.
So Active Commerce is an interesting one. Active Commerce no longer exists as.
So previous integrations of Sitecore with Active Commerce or their own commerce, what are the advantages you say of Sitecore 9?
So it's hard for me to address. I haven't worked with Active Commerce. What I could say is that I have a very clear handle of how I'd extend this. I've created a plugin. I see exactly how I could put something on an order screen. I could see how I could put something in a catalog screen to, that loyalty points example, to add loyalty points or whatever other requirement comes in. And I can really visualize that. All the pieces are very similar and consistent. There's a consistent metaphor that's driven all the way through it. Like when you work with Sitecore and you have that moment and realize everything's an item, a field is an item, templates are items, and so if I know how to do something with a landing page, I know how to do something with a field, and I know how to do, and the whole thing follows a very consistent paradigm. You come up with a crazy requirement, and I say, oh, let me find a pipeline. Oh, I'll slide it in here. And this is very much written in that spirit. It's written in a way so that it's very easy to extend. I'd say the trade-offs are, and this is very consistent with Sitecore, it's a platform. They're not trying to come at you with everything you could, it's not trying to be, I don't know what the commerce equivalent of WordPress would be, but we always get in these awkward conversations with Sitecore versus WordPress. Well, WordPress has a plugin that does that, yes, but then when you want to change something else, it's very hard to do, whereas with Sitecore, any kind of change is very easy to do. So this seems to be very much in that spirit of, everything is handled by a pipeline, everything is handled by a very consistent metaphor, everything's an entity, every entity has components. I haven't talked about policies, but that's a similar way of managing configuration differences. And so if you were to come at me and say, Dan, the client wants this and that and this other thing and this, and if it's Thursday, then we got to put a discount on, but this and that, and I'm going to be saying like, okay, so I'm going to want to have a module that goes here, and that's probably the plugin is going to do this thing and do that thing, and I kind of know what that would look like to build it out. So developer friendly would be. Alessandro? Yeah.
About the infrastructure,
Sean, you want to come here? Yeah, thanks.
What's the
Sal-
best recommendation, the Sitecore best recommendation for handling the Sitecore Commerce in production?
I mean, a lot of it depends on your license. If you have an XP0 license, you're stuck using an XP0. You know, depending on what kind of license you want, you can do it on a single. That's okay. You know, for a more robust site that's, you know, you're handling a lot of traffic, you're you know, a vacation site or, you know, a huge storefront, you're probably going to want to do it in an XP 0, 1, 2, 3, depending on, you know, what you have, and then most likely probably a consumption-based Sitecore license that you can scale in like a cloud type setting. The nice thing.
A separate server, or like
So-
you have reporting, processing, and commerce?
So you could scale these. So you know, all those little blue boxes could all be in
Yeah.
separate.
So each one of those, like when we were working, you know, on the Azure PaaS solution, each one of those can be a worker role that can be scaled. So you can scale, like, so if you have 10 million users, you could scale up your Sitecore identity server that large. You know, you can scale up your you could scale up your biz FX if you have that many items and you have 40 front ends hitting it, you can scale that piece up.
So I'll give you an example. It's September and October, and you've hired a whole bunch of temps to get a whole bunch of new products into your system because Black Friday and Christmas is coming. So you're probably going to want to scale your authoring role so that a lot of people can work on it. Okay, now it's getting to be Black Friday, and you're maybe not adding that much new inventory because hopefully you've all built that, but you're about to get a ton of traffic coming in. You'll probably want to scale out the shops role, which is what takes all the requests from the front end, and all of those things. And one of those videos, so there's 6 videos in that series, and one of them is on architecture and goes through all of these scaling scenarios. And they say, okay, this is kind of real simple. Only a developer would want to do this. Here's kind of a basic level of how you could say, okay, you can have your Sitecore front end here. You can have your commerce 4 roles in this machine, and maybe with the identity server, and then, okay, maybe you move the identity server out, and it's not really my area of expertise to understand exactly what the considerations are for how you'd want to break things up, but I think from a common sense point of view, you can observe load and say, okay, a lot of load is coming into this, we can scale that out. And everything is built in a way that it can be scaled horizontally. You know, you can make 5 or 6 Alessandros and do 6 times as much. Yeah.
Is there like a consumption model licensing consideration on the commerce side of the front end in any capacity? Like similar to how it is, I guess, outside of commerce with consumption model?
Like Corey's gone.
Corey left.
So like Nicole is like, you're my best. Yeah, I don't know the license. I don't know the licensing part. Chris Brady might have more information there. I know that there.
Doing whatever, so,
Yeah. I've been to many.
okay.
Yeah. I've been to a lot of like Sitecore workshops where whenever the word licensing comes up, like the technologists and programmers get real quiet. Like, I can't answer any questions about licensing. You know, I know that SXA, which I didn't really spend a lot of time on, but SXA is free with the product if you have a subscription license. So, you know, there seems to be momentum towards that. At least it was last I heard about it. So, you know, Sitecore is putting a lot of emphasis on the subscription business, and so, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that impacted things, but I really don't know any specifics. Thank you very much, everyone. Interested in feedback, feel free to @ me on Twitter, Dan Solove. That was cool. It would have been really awesome if you'd gone more into X, and maybe I'll write about it. So, thanks. Thank you. Sean. Supernatural. Yeah. You're really comfortable out there.